well, Matina members, and welcome to the first Skye and Raasay committee for 2023. Members, you'll recall that we received a very welcome additional agenda item and paper at the end of last week. And with your approval, I'm going to take the item on the Island's Emergency Cost Crisis Fund first today. And I'm going to take it as an urgent item due to the timescales involved in which to distribute this important funding. And also due to the fact that Alan Gunn, the Chief Executive Officer for Communities and Place, has made himself available at short notice to introduce the paper. So once we go through agenda items 1, 2 and 3, I'm going to take that paper first. Are we happy to agree that, members? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can we start off then with apologies for absence, Alistair?
We're all present, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, any declarations of interest relating to today's agenda? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll make a transparency statement that I volunteer as a volunteer to broadcast a show on Radio Skye, which I broadcast from my house and send by email. I have no other connection to Radio Skye. I'm not a member of Radio Skye, and that's my statement. So I feel I'm quite able to participate in any discussions today.
Okay, thank you. Any other members? Any other? Councillor Monroe?
Chair, he seems to be having an issue with the connection. He's just showing us having left the meeting here.
I'm seeing him.
Back in.
Yeah, we can see it. Right, Callum?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, my laptop crashed here. Yes, in relation to item 9, I'd like to make a transparency statement on 2 accounts. First of all, the Skye Dance application. My daughter has participated in Skye Dance events and will do going into the future. And secondly, in terms of Init Hroturnish and their Guhan Achida application, I have participated in a festival in November. I received a fee for taking part in that festival weekend. And so, but just for transparency, I'd like to make that clear. And I don't think it precludes me from taking part in today's committee, and that item 9. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members, we'll move on to then the additional item that we've agreed that we'll take first, and that's the Island's Emergency Cost Crisis Fund. So I'm going to hand over to Alan Gunn.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, and firstly, thank you for taking this item at such short notice, but hopefully appreciate that it's very important for our communities, particularly in the islands. Members, the Island Scotland Act in 2018 introduced measures to meet the needs and improve quality of life for island communities. In relation to the cost of living crisis, island communities are already experiencing higher cost of living, high fuel costs, and a colder climate compared to the mainland. The Scottish Government has provided Highland Council with grant funding to help alleviate the cost crisis in our island communities, and this report sets out recommendations for the distribution of the share of funding for Skye and Raasay. So Section 4.1, members, this fund has been developed specifically to tackle those specific needs in the islands, to target island areas only, to target those in immediate need and those who are helping to struggle due to the cost of living crisis, and to support any existing schemes that we may have. And members, you may be aware that the Highland Council itself has supported all its constituents through the cost of living crisis, including the payment made in September 22 for all across Highlands. So to enable the share of this funding to be distributed promptly and efficiently, we're proposing a payment of £155 per household, non-recurring, to those in receipt of the means-tested council tax reduction, with a liability specified at 16 January 23. There are also some other categories of household that we feel should fall into this qualifying criterion, and combined would result in the payment of 694 payments to residents being made, requiring a budget of 107,000. The balance, members, the 6,000, would be required to meet overheads and to ensure that any retrospective claims for council tax reduction are covered. So what we're proposing here, members, is that customers do not need to apply for this. We use existing data that we already hold to maximise the take-up. It reduces inquiries, it minimises costs, and crucially for our customers, members, it speeds up payment. And through Alistair Bruce's team, and Alistair joins me today, we're confident we can make these payments by the 28th of February 23. If we can do it beforehand, great. Part of the process, members, will include, we will write to each of these customers electronically. We have their email addresses, for example, so there'll be no paper. We will write to them electronically and advise of them of this payment. Now, our experience of this, member, sees that as a good idea, because quite often can happen is when customers receive this payment, they subsequently make an inquiry as to what the payment is for. So we do find in the long run it's better if we write out to customers and advise them of this payment, including the purpose and the fact that it was approved through your respective committee, if you're so minded. Members, thank you for your time, and myself and Alistair Bruce are more than happy to take any queries from you. Thank you.
Okay, Alan, thank you very much indeed. I think this is a really welcome paper, and I think what you've articulated today in terms of the process of getting the money out speedily to our community members, the fact that you've got experience of this, the fact that we don't need to go through an application system, I think is really welcome. And I think the fact that we can get this money out before the end of almost the next month is absolutely admirable. And I think everyone will be really appreciative of that. Members, any comments from any members? Councillor Miller?
I just reiterate what you said, Chairman. I think it's excellent news, and obviously the system that the council have set up, it's pretty cost effective, and we've had the assurances that it will be delivered rapidly, and at this time of year, I think especially, there is a huge need. We can see that in the number of people frequenting our food banks, food shares, etc. And this money will be extremely welcome. And we all know the cost of fuel. Heating fuel hasn't come down that much. Our people need to travel around in Skye to get access to food share and food banks. The price of fuel, certainly in the north of Skye, is still extortionate. The south end of Skye is much better served nowadays. So I think that this money will be a huge benefit. So certainly more than happy to support the paper and the recommendations within.
Okay, thank you. I know that we have got Alistair Bruce with us today. So Alistair, just going to ask you, Alan indicated that we've got the electronic details of everyone that we need to distribute this money to. I'm just looking for confirmation about that, given that, you know, sometimes people claim that they haven't got that electronic access.
Yes, you're right, Chair, because we've been through this exercise before, then we've been able to gather a database of information of the customers concerned. We can narrow them down by postcode to pick out the relevant people, and as has already been highlighted, by not going through an application process, we know that there's already been a means testing exercise taking place to allow council tax reduction eligibility. So this eligibility just comes in on the back of that. We identify the customers. We have bank details for the majority of them. There are some new ones that have come on board since the last payment was made. We'll gather the details for these ones and pull the whole thing together and get the payments out as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. Well, what a nice positive way to start our committee today. As giving out money to those who most need it. So members, in terms of the Islands Emergency Cost Crisis Fund, can we agree that this funding be used to automatically make non-recurring cost crisis payments of £155 per eligible household by 28th February 2023, where the council holds the current bank details in accordance with the eligibility criteria set out in section 4 of this report? Can we agree? Thank you, members, and thank you, Alan, and thank you, Alistair, for your time today, and no doubt we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, and thank you again for taking the late item, Chair. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Okay. Minutes, members, of the meeting of the Isle of Skye Committee, the last one, which was 31st October. So it's really just for noting because these were approved by the Highland Council on 8th December. I think, Mike, is it Mike Collier that's with us today? We weren't sure whether it was you or Carl that was going to be with us, Mike. So we've got the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Local Committee Performance Report. So nice to see you again, Mike, and I'll just hand directly over to yourself.
Good morning, Chair, and nice to see you again as well, John, and all of you indeed. Thank you very much. I'm still coming over chest infections, so I'll try and avoid coughing, etc. But Carla, unfortunately, is off ill as well, so she's laid up with a similar thing at the moment, as we know it's rife. So basically today what I'll do is I'll go through the report I've got in front of me here, some minutes of that, and then I'll open it up to the forum for any questions that they want. So thank you today for the opportunity today to reflect upon the Q3 reports for Skye and Raasay area 22-23. It would be noted though that the report you have in front of you has minor absence of reporting due to the festive period, and there'll be some updates throughout the report as well, which may not correlate to the report you have in front of you. The area continues to perform well, and regarding the key performance indicators on which SFRS measures its local performance within communities, the following is noted. Accidental dwelling fires, the figure for the period is 2 in October, 0 in November and 1 in December. Of these, 1 was a false alarm good intent, the other 2 were minor incidents with no fire damage. These incidents continue to be well below the Highland LSO area and national average. Fire casualties remain, fatal and non-fatal, remain at 0 and have done for several years now within the area and remain low against comparable averages. Engagement with our community members to deliver appropriate fire safety messages will always be our proactive operating model. In effecting a positive engagement model, we reach those most vulnerable in our communities and working with partners seek to improve safety within the home. Deliberate fires, there are no recorded deliberate fires for the reporting period. Special service road traffic collisions, 4 recorded over the reporting period. Only 1 of these incidents required intervention from SFRS. The RTCs remain significantly lower than averages. However, district commanders will continue to work with partner agencies to identify any trends and work towards greater engagement to reduce RTCs where possible. So UFAS, unwanted fire alarm signals, again well below expectations and no issues for the local area. Continue to monitor premises and where repeat instances are impacted upon service delivery, as well as meeting SFRS guidance for breach. Engagement will be implemented to identify cause and seek appropriate solutions, but really not a problem on Skye for us at this time. So our most challenging aspect is station availability. It remains the most challenging area of the SFRS on-call business model within rural remote areas with the significant societal changes. We continue to proactively recruit, and national options are being sought which will adopted to support a stronger and more effective recruiting model. Each of the island stations continue to seek recruits and keep appliances on the run for longer periods. There are a number of individuals in the recruitment process, and this will bolster our model. Alternative response models are also now being implemented, and whilst this is an immediate solution to continue to provide a service to local communities, SFRS will continue to seek to improve recruiting and the on-call business model as a matter of urgency. So a very straightforward report for today, and that concludes it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and thanks for coming along. You don't sound too healthy, so make sure you look after yourself. This bug seems to be affecting an awful lot of people, so thank you for your time. Members, have we got any comments or questions for Mike? Councillor Monroe?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mike. Good to see you again. Look after yourself, like Councillor Finlayson says. I think it's the availability of our stations and our staffing ratios, which again are our primary concern, I suppose, as local members. Broadford and Portree and Raasay, I think, were, having relatively good figures, but in Portree we had quite a drop off in Q3. I'm not sure what the reasons for that are, and if that's something that's going to be addressed and something which we can make more sustainable. And just in terms of our looking at the 6 stations, average ratios would just be above 5 per station, and how that compares across Highland. That's my 2 questions, Mike. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Monroe, thank you very much, and thank you for your words as well there. So with regards to the station establishments, you're absolutely right. We would be looking at, in a healthy situation, having 12 in each station, and that's what we should have. Unfortunately, we are out of our 56 stations in Highlands, we are probably sitting with a significant number with the lower than establishment that we would like, due to the challenges we continue to face. Skye in particular has proven quite challenging. Carla has implemented and worked very closely with other areas to implement a joint mobilising policy. We also have import duties. We've got people moving around from stations to cover other stations to allow us to provide cover in a larger geographical area. 350 hours were used for that in Q3. So that has helped. The joint mobilising, where we put out reduced staffing appliances together to make a combined appliance, has been used effectively 3 times as well in December to ensure that we can respond adequately. I also can tell you that we have up to 12 people coming in to join the stations, 2 for staffing, which is absolutely wonderful, because we've got 2 there for a while now, with a station that's been off the run long term due to people that have moved on. 3 for Dunvegan and 1 potential, 1 for Portree and 1 potential, 2 for Broadford potential and 2 for Uig. So those figures, if we can get them through the system and start to get them trained up, will make a big difference to the area. Portree itself, it's not really anything to do with Portree directly. It's just the nature of where we are at the moment and where we are with stations. We're looking at that. Obviously, that's still going on with that station build and how we do that in the future with a potentially different operating model. Those conversations are ongoing at strategic levels. But Portree has lost a number of people, but they have had a new start, and they've got potentially another 2 coming in, and then hopefully we'll start to see that increase. Broadford has a retirement coming up, so they will actually drop to 4. And Broadford, I've always found since I've been on the island in 2018 when I came to Skye, Broadford has remained one of the most challenging stations to actually recruit for. And I don't know if it's just because of the nature of the community around Broadford. I'm not 100% sure, but it's something we bolster with Kyle at this moment in time to try and ensure that we do that, and the 2 stations work together very closely across the bridge there. So I don't know if that assists you, Councillor Munro, but we will. This is not a short-term thing. We will be continuing to work on this for quite some time, locally and nationally, in regards to this.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Chairman. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, just a couple of things, I suppose, really. Obviously struggling for the recruitment throughout the Skye. I noticed Raasay's at 90% availability, so that's pretty good. And six staff, so that's for Raasay, that's pretty remarkable. Yeah, I mean, the last time I was on the council as well, like the same problems that were facing the fire service then with Broadford was pretty apparent, and I think I certainly visited there just before 6 years ago, I think it was, and the fireman in charge at the time, firefighter in charge, was exactly saying what you've just said just now, that struggling. So I just wondered, I suppose it's very difficult for you to answer this maybe, but the issue of perhaps looking at a full-time crew on Skye would be to some of us would seems like a sensible way forward to giving people a career without having to worry about getting off work, whatever. And I think some of us still have a dream, of course, of seeing the airport being reinstated at Broadford, which would, of course, maybe give some more power to the need for a full-time station. So I just wondered maybe if you were able to give us any thoughts on if you thought that would ever be possible. So the other point I was going to ask you about, given you're struggling for men, how prepared are you for the wildfire season, the moor burning that's about to hit us again? And I know, like last year, some of your guys were pretty exhausted with the number of hours they were out, and of course that falls back on their ability to go to work, which probably they couldn't, because they were probably dead on their feet after being fighting for days. And the other issue, I just wondered if you could maybe make a comment on how advanced are, if you know, are the plans for a new fire station at Portree, given, as you well know, just round the corner from where I'm sitting just now. Not the ideal location. And with so many more maniacs now driving up Stormy Hill against the one-way system, it's an accident waiting for to happen. And I suppose, given now the new link road being passed at planning last week, would that give you possibilities of maybe a blue lamp site up at Perchee, which I just wondered if you could give us any information, any plans that are being progressed. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, we'll take a couple more members, and then you can come back in with all your replies. Councillor Munro again.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me back in. Just remember that, a point about Mike will be aware of the development going on in Newig, the harbour development in Newig, and obviously the fire unit there is in the CMAL building which is currently used by CalMac 2, and I think CMAL intend to consult with the community at some point quite soon, so we can see what the community's views. And I was just wondering, as you know, with Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, a resident in there, are you aware of any plans or any discussions to develop a new unit or a new station in Newig, Mike? Thanks. Okay, Mike, and I'll maybe come in with one question, Mike, then you can answer us all. It's about the joint mobilising strategy. Just out of interest, I mean, I was caught up in an RTC last week, and I think there was joint mobilising strategy in place. When that happens, say for example, you've got two coming from Portree and you've got two coming from Broadford, would you be using basically the fire engine, or is there a vehicle that can get the two from one place to meet up with the station that's taking the pump, or do the two pumps have to go? That's really just a question, because thinking of expenditure and time and possibly, you know, the panic it creates, because it looked like something out of NYPD Blue last week, and then when I found out it wasn't the most serious accident, but it obviously was an unfortunate one. So a number of questions, Mike.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Miller, Councillor Munro. So I'll start with Councillor Miller, if that's okay. I would love to see a whole-time station on Skye. Quite frankly, I would love to. I have made proposals across the Highland area of alternative staffing models that we think would be better. Skye's not unique in some of its issues. We look at Fort William and Ardamurchan, and we look at the northwest corner up there, Wick and Thurso, and we look at Invergordon and places like that. And we then compare ourselves to some of the issues that are going on in Devon and Cornwall and Wales, where it's a very similar model and makeup of tourist industry, etc. And you're absolutely spot on to be able to give that opportunity for people to have careers and develop themselves. It not only benefits the communities, but actually benefits us, because it gives us a greater number of individuals that we can work with to promote through various aspects of the fire service career. So those conversations are ongoing. I'm certainly beating the drum for that quite considerably, and I will continue to do so, particularly at the moment when we have that opportunity of that station build in Portree, and we're looking at how we can make that most effective for not only ourselves but for Skye and the wider area. Because if there's an effective, we wouldn't call it whole time, but a day manning where it's whole time during the day and it's retained on call at night, that model may be more sufficient for us. And we currently have a station in Livingston which has 3 different models operating within it, and if we could say that it wouldn't require a lot of consultation and negotiation with the union. So therefore that's kind of the conversations I'm trying to have at that strategic level at this moment and influence it where I can, Councillor Miller. Wildfire season, you're absolutely spot on, and there is another aspect of that will affect that this year. We do look at part of our jobs as officers, and the watch commanders on an appliance is to ensure crew rotation and keep firefighters safe. Primarily, we will always look to keep them safe, because if they're not safe and they get hurt, then they're not serving our communities as well. That benefits nobody, and we certainly, that reputational risk to ourselves is not good enough. So we will do that, and we will continue to draw resources from elsewhere. We will move, because we're a Scottish service, we can move appliances from Perth, Dundee, Fife, all the way up the country if we need to, and continue to rotate and move people around, because you're spot on there about the primary employer. Primary employers are feeling the pinch a little bit more now as well, so we need to balance that up as a set of scales. So that is very much at our forefront. We have a a development day coming up very shortly for our officers on wildfire and wildfire management, and part of that will be how we look after our crews and how we deal with these incidents. One aspect that may be affecting that shortly, and I'm surprised none of you have mentioned it, is the potential for industrial action. We are currently, in fact today, the ballot finishes, and that will identify whether we are going to actually take industrial action or not, along with the rest of our public sector individuals. There are some ongoing conversations because London has thrown a spanner in the works, shall we say, and there's some discussions going on about that. So towards the end of February, if it was to be implemented, we'd probably be looking at potentially some industrial action at that point. And again, that comes down to us as officers trying to manage those situations during the muir burn season. But please be rest assured that at all times, our number one priority is public and firefighter safety, and we will always do that. Okay, so plans for the new station, Councillor Miller? Yes, I continue to work with the team in regards to that. Our Director for Assets and Asset Management has gone to Scottish Government for money to look at the viability, and we are sitting down with the Scottish Ambulance Service and Police Scotland, and it will be a multi-agency build. And my anticipation is that that will be approved, because Scottish Government's very keen to see these kind of premises coming up, which reduces drains on, it brings organisations and partners together in a more holistic approach. It reduces the demand for assets and buildings and repairs, etc. So there's positives to be had from all of it. So those conversations are all ongoing. You will be aware that we've obviously had some significant issues recently in the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. Unfortunately, what happened in New County Hotel in Perth, and then, you know, tragically, firefighter Martin this week as well, last week. So we're dealing with a lot of that, and obviously we have to try and juggle our priorities at this time, but there are teams working on that for us. So hopefully that covers yourself, Councillor Miller. Councillor Munro, Uig, the harbour development, absolutely a forefront of our mind, and Uig Station has always been planned to be built and have a new station at Uig. That will continue to be a rapid response unit at this moment in time. They are quite keen to say, could we change it back to a different type of appliance, a sort of medium weight appliance. Those conversations are ongoing as well to see is there any viability or reasoning to actually carry that out. But Uig has always been, I think for the better part of 2 or 3 years, I've been working on that project, but it has been approved and there should be a station built. We've got the location to the rear of what was the Portakabins and the restaurant there. So that piece of land there is where we will anticipate that we will build a premise at that point with access from the front and the rear. So hopefully that answers yourself, Councillor Munro. Chair, thank you very much for the joint mobilising. So how it works is it has to be appliances. We can't allow them to take their own cars because they're travelling under blue light conditions. We did have an instance where a couple of people did take their own car, and we've had to have a conversation around that. We need to ensure at all times that when we do this, we are, because the union have said it's what we call an interim measure, but we want to ensure that we're keeping people safe, we're meeting our legislative responsibilities, and it does look quite frightening at times, multiple appliances coming to meet, but we've got it whereby, so say it was Portree and Dunvegan, and it was going to a location where Portree would get there quicker, we may actually mobilise Dunvegan slightly earlier, then mobilise Portree so the two arrive at the same time based on the sort of route planning, etc. So there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes there, but we will not shy away from the fact that they have to remain in the appliances, because that is the safest option and the most, well, it's a legal option as well for us. We can't allow people to get in their own cars and start flying to incidents to try and deal with things. That just opens up a huge can of worms that is just totally unacceptable. So I hope that answers, and I see Councillor Miller's come back in again there.
Drew?
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, it was just on something else in the report. I know you touched on it. So I just want to ask you about the road traffic incidents, which I noticed there's quite a few over the years. There's been a couple of dips, but like last year it was 12 or something. But I just wondered, in the commentary you've got the bit about driving ambitions, safe Highlander, all of which have a focused message of road safety, etc. But I just wonder if you had any idea of the breakdown of these road traffic. Because it seems to me that that most of the accidents happening nowadays are involving hired vehicles, tourists coming to the island. But well, my perception certainly is that the majority of them of road accidents are caused by tourists who are not used to certainly single track roads, especially. And I just wondered, between yourselves and the Police Scotland, are you doing something with these hired car companies to try and ensure that the drivers are aware of the conditions they're about to face, rather than having you guys having to be called out for shall we say, unsafe driving? Trying to be polite here.
Okay, Councillor Miller, thank you very much. You're absolutely right that probably the majority are tourists or people who have no knowledge of how to drive on these types of roads. But what I would say in reflection of that is the majority of these tend to be low impact, low speed. So the injuries in that are less significant. What we do tend to find, however, unfortunately, is it's locals or business people that are in a bit of a hurry that tend to make the more grave errors at high speed, and those are the ones that we get more significantly involved in. So we do work quite closely with Police Scotland and our partner agencies, and one of the things that came out, and I think it was 2019, was talking to hire companies and putting stickers on the cars, on the steering wheels that said drive on the left, and trying to continually have that message made to them. So that helped, because one of the particular areas we had was down at Sligahan here, where they came out the car park and went onto the other side of the road all the time, and we had 2 or 3 head-ons down there. But thankfully, and it's actually ironic, because the volume of traffic you get on Skye slows down the traffic so much that when we do have these head-ons, if they're not somebody who's overtaken or trying to get somewhere really quickly and they're a tourist, it tends to be more of a shunt than a significant RTC, which will result in an injury or even worse. So those conversations are always ongoing. Through ourselves, we try to obviously educate our local and our community members at all times, particularly our youth, and then we work with the other partners to do wider national campaigns, which then work towards supporting hire companies and so on and so forth. So I hope that helps in answering regards to that.
No, thanks very much, and thank you for your answers to all my questions. You've given me some hope that one day we'll see a new station in Burgee, and hopefully one day we'll see a full-time station somewhere on Skye that can, as you discussed. So personally, if you ever need support from me as an elected member, I'd be more than happy to chuck my weight behind you, and it is considerable. I mean, bulk-wise, not politically, but I'm sure the other councillors would give you support for that as well. So good luck with your plans. Thank you very much for your answers.
It's very much appreciated, Councillor Miller. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mike, I think we all echo what Councillor Miller has just said, and can we thank you for your report and also for answering all the questions comprehensively. I hope your health improves, Mike, and we'll see you no doubt the next time, and pass on our regards to Carla as well.
Will do, Chair. Thank you again. Thank you very much, councillors. Have a lovely day.
Okay, members, moving on to agenda item number 5, the Area Roads Capital Programme. I think we all appreciate that there is anxiety and frustration amongst the members of the public at the moment with the state of roads here on Skye and Raasay, but I think also across Highland. But again, I think we've all also got to recognise that we're working within an environment where there's only so much resource. And today, Gordon MacDonald is going to give us an outline of what the capital programme is for 23-24 based on the resources he believes are available. But I think as members, we are all keen to lobby as much as possible for additional resource for our roads. And while the capital programme at council level hasn't been agreed yet, I do know that we're working really hard to make sure that some additionality in terms of road resource does come our way. But today's report deals with the funding that Gordon knows is available. But as I've said, hopefully that may increase once the capital programme is set. So, Gordon, over to you to introduce the paper, and then we'll ask members for questions.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. The report is the Area Roads Capital Programme for 23-24. There's a few areas that I'd just like to highlight. Chair has already mentioned that the basis of the report has been written on the budget allocation that we're aware of, which is our 7.2 baseline budget allocation. In Appendix 1 of the report, it highlights the roads allocation for 22-23. The reason I'm commenting there is that the baseline roads allocation is, if you look down Appendix 1, you'll get to just below the first heading, which says capital. Down there, it highlights a figure of 490. Everything that is below that line in Appendix 1 is additional allocations that were made to us over last year and the previous year. The programme for surface dressing and overlays is outlined in Appendix 2, and there are a number of schemes, as I said, highlighted surface dressing schemes and surfacing schemes, all to the value of our baseline budget allocation. Now, the roads maintenance programme is effectively prepared utilising information from the road maintenance condition survey, road safety inspections, service inspections, and feedback from members and complaints that have been highlighted from the public. That's all prioritised into forming a list of works. The Scottish Road Maintenance Condition Survey data, if I could highlight this, there was a report that went to committee, to Economy and Infrastructure Committee on the 2nd of December 2021, which basically highlights the state of the council's road network. The reason that I want to discuss this is just to put a bit of context into where we are at the moment. The condition survey is an annual survey which assesses the condition of the whole Scottish adopted road network, including the council and trunk roads. It's used to calculate a road condition indicator, which is used by Audit Scotland and statutory performance indicators for reporting the road condition. Now, the council's position within that is that it has a road condition indicator of 39.1 and places it 26th out of 32 Scottish local authorities. Now, 10 years ago, back in 2010 and 11, the council's indicator was 29.3, and it was placed 11th out of the 32 local authorities. And there's been a considerable deterioration in the roads network over the last 10 years. The report also highlighted that in order to maintain our roads in a steady state with no improvement, it's estimated that the council would require to spend £26 million per year just to stand still and not allow further deterioration. You can see from Appendix 1 that our baseline capital allocation for Skye is effectively £500,000. If I was to interpolate the 26 million for the whole of Highland, it would be Skye would require something of the order of £2.6 million a year to stand still. So it's a significant difference between what we have and what we need, and it may offer some explanation as to the deterioration of the road network to the extent that it's deteriorating. The schemes highlighted in Appendix 2, there is the surface dressing schemes. There are a number of schemes totaling 68,000 square metres of surface dressing and 12,900 metres of surfacing. Now, the other schemes that fall below the line for our baseline budget allocation are schemes that we would effectively would like to do if there was any additional budget available. These schemes below the line are not the only schemes. There is a significant number of schemes out there that require to be addressed. and as the winter progresses, significantly more deterioration will be occurring. It was, I'm sure the public have noted that since the ice thawed a week or so ago, there's been a significant change in the network. Areas where there may not have been potholes, there are now potholes, and where there were potholes is significantly worse. There's one last thing that I'd want to say is in paragraph 5.3 of the report. A recent War Business meeting, the members expressed the view that they wish to commit the remaining £44,000 from the earmark reserves from the Skye and Raasay area share of local parking income for the 2021-22 to road maintenance. Unfortunately, I neglected to add that to the recommendation, and it would be appropriate if the recommendation read that the members are asked to approve the capital programme and paragraph 5.3 that the £44,000 from earmark reserves from the Skye and Raasay share of local car parking income for 21-22 is added to the recommendation. That's all I'd particularly say if members have any questions.
Okay, Gordon, thank you for that. I'm actually going to come in myself first this time, if you don't mind. So I think that was a really sobering point that you made in terms of the council needing 26 million to stand still, and in Skye we would probably need 2.6 million a year to stand still in terms of keeping the roads at the current condition, which is of course quite concerning. I also note that last year, because of the concerns, we didn't do surface dressing. So my first question is, in terms of surface dressing, will we be able to get the emulsion and the materials we get this year? Because there was a concern about it last year, but we also took the decision last year not to do surface dressing because there was concern over the number of potholes. And the third point I would like to make is that we need more money. There's no doubt about that. And I think as members, in terms of the disaggregated budgets that we do receive, and we'll be allocating some disaggregated budget later on today at committee, I think we as members need to think seriously about what we do in terms of giving as much money as possible to roads, because very clearly it is the #1 priority for the constituents here in Skye. So rest assured, Gordon, that we will continue to lobby the administration when we're setting the capital budget, and also at local level we need to see what we can also do, because it's really important that we put as much money as possible in. We're not going to get near 2.6 million, but I think we do need to make sure that we're supporting you as much as possible. Okay, so I'll let you answer the question about surface dressing once we get a few other comments. Councillor Monroe.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Gordon. Thank you for your introduction to the paper there. I think it's really important that you give some context, first of all, in terms of you know, the condition of our roads in comparison to other local authorities, how it's changed in the last 10 years. And also, I think what's important people hear is how you actually go about prioritising the capital programme and your ongoing maintenance and all that feeds into that. So I think it's important people hear that. So thank you for doing that. I think the 2 or 3 things I'd like to say, Gordon, is that we're receiving a huge amount of correspondence again about all sorts of roads, minor roads, side roads, the main roads. But I think it's just, I wonder if we can give people reassurance that although we're going to be concentrating on the capital programme in the coming year, that some permanent repairs using the Pothole Pro will go ahead, using Jet Patcher, Hot Box, potholes will be attended to as and when you can prioritise these. Secondly, I think it's just to acknowledge last winter we had, I don't think we had any snow last winter. We probably were gritting, but this year we've had really extreme winter conditions, and that fluctuation up and above and below freezing, which makes things really difficult. And I know that our workforce are going out gritting, ploughing, and then also trying to patch roads with potholes as and when that can be fitted in. So just to acknowledge that's a challenge. That probably last thing, Gordon, is, and it comes to us regularly too, is the issue of drainage. We spoke to you, I think it was in January, and you said there's some equipment coming, offlet cutter, hopefully in May. I think that was the time scale. And just, I think people acknowledge the importance of draining our roads and getting our offlets cut. So just so people are aware that that machinery is coming, and that we intend to to make use of it certainly in the coming months. Thanks, Gordon.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miller.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting to get called so quick. No, thanks very much, Gordon. Yeah, it brought us down to reality there, that report, given that we've had some real positive stuff this morning so far. So it's a difficult job, and as Councillor Monroe said, we've had huge amounts of, most of our emails are to do with roads at the moment and not any good news stories. I just wondered, obviously your planned works and you're working, or hopefully able to work today at Crossall given the bad weather. I just wondered how that is going. Your big plans for Crossall, for Scabest, and the 855 from Torrevig Road End, I believe, are the first three major ones that we've been passing out information on to our constituents as well. I mean, how is that going? And I know that you've got a planned work schedule going through your capital plan. I just wondered maybe if members could get a list of an approximate prioritisation of your planned works taking up, say, to the end of April. So when we do get inquiries, that we could then pass that on to our constituents, or we could put it out on social media. I know it would be very much an approximation, because I know that the weather is we're still in January. The weather could be really severe. I believe there's more bad weather forecasts. So it would be useful, though, once those three major ones are completed, if we could have an idea just on how you're planning to carry on with your planned works. And fingers crossed that the weather will improve. But basically, I think that we appreciate the work that your boys are doing, and appreciate the situation from going from heavy snow and ice just a few days ago to basically the next day. The snow had gone, the ice had gone, and the potholes are appearing, as you said yourself, they're appearing almost overnight. So I think we all appreciate, we support the work that these are trying to do, but maybe we need just some more information to pass on to our constituents. But thanks, Gordon.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Miller. I think the point you made is well made, that maybe the public don't realise that it's the same guys that are doing the gritting that then go on to do the repairs on the road. So if you're up at 6 in the morning on a gritter, then you come in off your gritter, then you go out with the squad to do a road maintenance work. So I think that point was well made. Councillor Stewart, finally, then Gordon can come back with responses.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Gordon. It was a very comprehensive report, and it was really good to get that level of honesty about the condition of our roads here in Skye and where we rank as a local authority compared to others. But what I would like to say is, this is obviously no reflection of the work of you and your team. You're out there, you're working hard with what resources that we have available, and I think it's worth making note of that, as other members have. But I think what this really does highlight is the lack of funding that we have available to us as an area and as a council as a whole. So I think this is something that I know other members have touched on, but we do really need to pick up on as a committee and as a council. Actually, it's something that we need to draw attention to, because the lack of funding that's been happening to local authorities for a number of years now. The roads are that everyday visual reminder that this chronic underfunding, it's impacting on our permanent residents and on our tourist economy. There's no doubt that the roads have been deteriorating, and obviously this recent weather's accelerated that. But I think, I'm sure other members would support me in this, we do need to call on the council to reevaluate the funding that's put towards the roads, to make sure that in the budget that's just coming forward, that we do receive a fair share, because I would say that the roads are one of the priorities for the people here on Skye and Raasay, and it's something that you know, it affects everybody that lives in the island. So that's something that we do really need to keep under consideration. And it was good to hear that the chair was saying that we'll be looking to secure other funding through other means for the roads in Skye. You know, that's something that I would be very supportive of, and something that I'm sure that members would be very very grateful to hear from Chair. So thank you for that commitment, and we'll be looking forward to seeing how that progresses in the coming year. But no, just going back to the report, Gordon, that's very good, and it's good to hear from Callum that we do have the equipment that's going to be coming soon, and it's hopefully that will make a difference to how quickly that you and your team can sort of get on to these issues and make a real difference. But no, thank you again for the report. It was much appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. And just to remind Councillor Stewart, we're in this together. So any lobbying, it needs all 4 members to be behind it. And we are keen to ensure that we can get the maximum amount of money during very, very difficult financial times. As I say, the capital programme has yet to be decided. But certainly we as Skye members are making very strong representation about the need for additionality in roads, even in tough times. And the other budgets that you talked about, Councillor Stewart, are really our own budgets that come under our own control. And we need to make decisions perhaps that mean that we divert that funding towards roads, and that funding then can go elsewhere. But we need to set our priorities, and certainly at this time the public are telling us that roads is our priority. Gordon, if you want to come back on the other question that members asked.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Starting with your own, Councillor Finlayson. The surface dressing, we will be surface dressing this year. There was a decision taken last year for operational reasons due to availability of plant, and that we had accelerated some of our spend on the surfacing, but we will endeavour to be surface dressing this year. The programme is as per Appendix 2. Councillor Munro, capitalising capital programme. Generally, the programme, it all comes down to safety in effect, and that high-speed roads and high-priority routes are prioritised. However, we can't neglect some of the lesser, not lesser roads, but the lower ranking roads, in that you get to a point where they are failing so badly that you can't do anything but resurface them. I mean, they've potholed and potholed and potholed and get patched again. But ultimately, on certain roads, it comes to a stage where there is no treatment other than effectively surfacing it, because it's effectively destroyed itself. Prioritisation, we do use the information from the Scottish, the condition survey, and we also use visual inspections. It is very likely that today, the end of January, there may be changes between now and the end of the winter. I'm hoping that we've had the worst. I mean, 3 weeks of ice and snow lying on the surface is unusual for us. I think we've had 4 relatively mild winters prior to this one, and this one, effectively, the snow and ice on the road for any period of time makes its way in, and then we effectively pay the price at the end of it. But in general, the roads will be prioritised in terms of safety and hierarchy. As far as other works are concerned, I can confirm that we will have a jet patcher on hire early into April next year. It'll probably do about 6 weeks' work throughout the island. A programme of routes for that could be made available to you. Pothole Pro will be used. It currently gets used during the surfacing as well for cutting joints and things on site. So just because we're surfacing doesn't mean it's not being utilised. But whenever we get an opportunity, we will have that out on the probably the A-class routes doing permanent patching. Hotbox will be out whenever it's available to be out. One of the difficulties we have is that we have a limited resource, and we effectively do all of our own work. But what I can say is we're fighting against the weather at the moment. It's a lovely day today and an ideal day for surfacing, but unfortunately the winter forecast was indicating that there was going to be down at 0 between 9 and 10 o'clock this morning in certain areas, or 8 and 10, sorry. So that would inevitably, because the gritters were out, would delay us starting later in today once they got back, cleaned their gritters, got to site, the tower was on site, whatever else. Winter weather. You're correct. The last I heard from the fleet manager was that our new tractor, flail mower and offlet cutter was still on schedule for being here during April. And that's confirmed. So the sooner we can get the tractor and offlet cutter out doing offlets, that should dramatically speed up the process of getting the water off the roads. Councillor Miller, planned works. The 3 sites that were mentioned, the Crossall was started on Wednesday last week. It was mobilised. They worked Thursday. Friday became a bit awkward with some rain. As I said, today it'll be a delayed start because operatives would be gritting, but they will be out there, and there will be at least a run of tar going out. That should be coming near to completion, so hopefully we will be shifting to Scabus in the next day or so. The forecast this week's not great. I think tomorrow's pretty dreadful, so we'll be just finding times whenever we can to get there. But certainly it's our intention that any opportunity we get, we will be resurfacing on these schemes. The 3 schemes that were mentioned is not all of the works. There's still some other outstanding works to be done, but clearly that was the priority at the minute. If we're not doing this type of work, we'll be doing some patching or other, whether it's side roads or main roads, depending on the weather conditions at the time. We will try and provide a list of our intentions. Always our capital programme will take priority over everything else. We will have a programme of patching that could be provided, or certainly the areas that we are intending to go to, and other cyclic activities. We could let you know that they are ongoing in certain areas, but we will endeavour to get that information to you. But the priority between now and the end of this financial year is to ensure that the capital programme is completed. Councillor Stewart, I'm not sure there was a question from Councillor Stewart, but thank you for the comments.
Okay, Gordon, thank you very much. We know a difficult time it is for you and for your workforce, and we also as members are getting lots of communication. We're seeing lots on social media, and we can't say to folk that a lot of what the comments they made are not justified, but I think they need to understand the wider context. We are working within a resource limit. Probably I think it's fair to say that our roads were not engineered for the volume of traffic that we currently see in them, from tourists, etc., etc. I personally would like to see a different set of criteria in terms of how we allocate the roads budget, and I think the condition of the roads really is key to that. But once again, I can only thank you and your team for what you do, and rest assured that we will continue as members to fight the cause, to fight the case for getting additional resource, and that's why we invited the Eco for Environment and Infrastructure to Skye last week, so we could see the state of our roads. So rest assured we'll continue to work with you and for you, But as I say, the public are right to be concerned, but there's only so much we can do, but we just need to keep trying to get additional resource. So thank you, Gordon, for your report and for your time. And let's hope we get a decent week of weather so we can continue with the works that are ongoing.
Thank you very much, member.
Okay, and Gordon, can we just note then, members, that we're asked to approve the proposed 23-24 area roads capital programme for the Isle of Skye and Raasay area, including an allocation of 44,000 from earmarked reserves from the Skye and Raasay area share of local car parking income for 21-22. Do we agree, members?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Okay, members, we're moving on now to item 6, the Isle of Skye and Raasay HRA capital programme. And we've got Jonathan Henderson, who's going to present a brief summary of the report. Over to you, Jonathan.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Yeah, I'll just give a quick introduction to the report, if that's okay, members. So Section 5 of the report gives a brief update on the current year HRA capital programme, leading into Section 6 of the report, which outlines the development of the 23 to 27 proposed HRA capital programme for Skye. Now, a couple of things just to draw out from that. Section 6.6 outlines the proposed funding allocation for Skye across those 4 years. Then, pardon me, Appendix 1 really sets out the recommended priorities for spend over the next 4 years in the Skye and Raasay area. Two things to note. Firstly, that obviously we're focusing in on a continued priority around, or recommending a continued priority around spend on energy efficiency measures within our stock, and also as a standard, there's the continued allocation of resources towards aids and adaptations works just at the top of the appendix there, which members will note. Happy to take any questions, Chair. I'm conscious we had reasonable discussion at Word Business, but again, I'm happy to pick up anything in due course. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions for Jonathan? Councillor Miller, I think you had something to ask.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I was just looking through your proposed expenditure, and I just sort of interested into looking at some of the works that you intend to carry out. For example, the kitchens, bathrooms for 23-24, 90,000. I suppose my question, and obviously you've got it laid out for the following 3 years as well. You won't get a lot of kitchens for that amount of money. I just wondered, do you foresee a backlog building up because of the lack of money? And also, I suppose, though it's a member-led budget, I suppose on the environmental improvements, there's not a lot there. I would suggest to be able to carry out any sort of significant improvements. So I just wondered, maybe you could maybe expand a little bit on what you would see as or you would class as affordable environmental improvements that we might as members consider.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Monroe, sorry, we'll go to Councillor Monroe now. You can answer all the questions at once, Jonathan. Callum.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Jonathan. Thanks for the report once again. My question too was on environmental improvements, and really, I suppose, what are the things we're going to prioritise there, and what would you maybe be directing us towards? We're just getting out of the COVID backlog, I presume. I wonder if there is a backlog, what we've managed to spend in terms of environmental improvements in the last couple of years, and have we been able to carry forward any capital for the current year, which, to conclude or to continue with environmental improvements. Thanks, Jonathan.
Okay, yeah. My understanding, Callum, is that I think we have carried money forwards. So that's probably something we do need to discuss with the housing team. Drew, you want to come back in?
Yeah, sorry, there was something I was just wanting to maybe ask, when I did ask him to consider or give us some ideas. I was approached a while ago, and I think Chairman knows about it. I was approached by some of the residents down at in Broadford, Lime Park, where most of the residents in that particular part are they're elderly and disabled, etc. But there's no vehicular access to that particular part of the housing estate, and I just wondered how maybe as part of the environmental improvements could we maybe would that be something that we could perhaps afford, is to take the vehicle access into the houses rather than having these people, they have to, if for example if the home help, they have to leave their car and they may have to walk 50-60 yards. If somebody takes ill, the ambulance have to stretcher them out because there's no vehicular access. People living at the Broadford end of that scheme, for example, if they are being picked up to go to hospital, they have to get from the far end of the houses, they have to physically get to where the car nearest point to be picked up to be taken to the hospital. So I just wondered, is 22,000 doesn't seem a lot if you were classing, for example, making that sort of a project possible. It's not a lot of money.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Councillor Stewart, and then Jonathan can come back in. You're on mute, Rudy.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks for the preparation of the report. I'd just like to ask, it was welcoming to see that energy efficiency is something that we're looking to target in the area. I'd just like to ask about priorities for that, because we've obviously had constituents like get in contact about various issues to do with the housing, like energy inefficiency being one through insulation, old and inefficient boilers, and issues with damp and mold. I'm just wondering what the sort of priority is and how you would propose using the budget. What is the priority when it comes to improving the energy efficiency, and how are you going to balance that with the budgetary pressures? Thank you.
Okay, Jonathan, a number of questions there for you to pick up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll maybe start in reverse order, start with Councillor Stewart, just while it's fresh in my mind. So yeah, there are and will be a range of measures which we need to carry out across our stock, depending on I guess sometimes in case the fabric of the building or what's readily available in that particular area. So I think we approach it on a case by case basis and try to make the best improvement that we can. I think with regard to heating systems, we would tend to focus in on the oldest and most inefficient heating systems first, and try to tie that in potentially with other measures as well, such as insulation if it's necessary, and also in some cases looking towards the installation of solar PV as well, you know, to really maximise the improvement. But I think you're right to mention that within that as well there are constraints around the budget that we have available, and the measures that we can carry out. So there is a process of prioritisation, as you say, and it's something which I'm happy to come back and talk about a bit more specifically at Ward Business Meeting if the Chair's agreeable to that. We can have a bit more of a fundamental look at that, and talk about really the way in which we would prioritise fundamentally, if that's okay. Councillor Munro and Councillor Miller, with regard to environmental improvements, I think there has been an allocation for environmental improvements within the HRA capital programme for a number of years now, which has allowed us to carry out certain improvement works in across the past few years. Any underspend works or any underspend resources have been carried forward. So and I think that what I would say in terms of the prioritisation of works, we found that works best at a local level, discussing it with the local team, with tenants and with members. So Councillor Miller, I'll not try and avoid your specific question around the area that you mentioned, but I'm confident that we can look at that in a bit more detail locally to see whether there are any opportunities there. I think yes, it's a modest amount within the overall budget, but nonetheless, it's an amount where we can prioritise things which are local priorities. Just to pick up on your question with regards to kitchens and bathrooms, Councillor Miller, I mean, I think within any capital programme and within any budget setting, there's the necessity to prioritise certain things over others. And I think within the Skye programme, as is set out, we're recommending a priority around energy efficiency measures within our housing stock. So that might mean that obviously we do slightly less over the next 4 years around kitchens and bathrooms. But we will be prioritising what kitchens and bathrooms we need to do through the local team as we go across those 4 years. I guess the important thing is just that we make the best use of the resources that we have. And I know I've spoken to Councillor Finlayson previously, along with Councillor Munro, at previous sittings of this committee around looking at local delivery and looking at partnership working with other organisations in order to deliver better economies of scale locally. So that's something we continue to look at. I hope that goes some way to answering your questions.
Apparently not. Councillor Miller?
No, I have a curious mind, Chairman. I fully understand that, and obviously being out of the system for a while, maybe it would be useful, and maybe you do this, but we could maybe get an update on what sort of demand you're facing for the various items that you have down for. I'm looking at here on. Hold on a second till I just find the right page here. Appendix 1, sorry. Maybe if we could have an award meeting or whatever, you could just send us some information on your projected numbers that you would be looking at, sort of a more wider breakdown of where you would be thinking. For example, what's the status of number of houses that you would properties you would need to be rewiring, for example, in the coming year, number of kitchens that you would have to replace, and the number that you may want to replace. There will be a difference, I'm sure. So just maybe a more transparent breakdown would be useful, just for us to perhaps look at our ward business meeting rather than discussing it at an area meeting where it's there's probably too much information for us to grasp from you verbally at the moment. So it might be useful, Chairman, for a future meeting, if you could get that sort of breakdown. Might find it useful, especially if people got in touch with us saying, "Oh, this is not right, and I want this, I need this done desperately." We could then respond without having to delay any responses.
Okay, yeah, I think Councillor Miller, I think that's easily achievable, and it's something that we can agree ourselves through Willie and Jonathan, and we can make that happen. Okay, members, so we're looking at we're asked to agree the proposed investment priorities in the HRA capital programme for Isle of Skye and Raasay 23 to 27, as set out in the appendix and as we've discussed. Are we happy to agree, members?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan, for that. Okay, members, moving on to agenda item number 7, garage rents, and we've got Jenny Bruce with us to give us a short introduction to this one. Over to you, Jenny.
Right, thank you very much. Obviously each year we review the garage rents. Last year we asked and applied a 1% increase to our garage rents. This year I'm hoping that you'll consider granting a 7% increase, which I know sounds like a lot compared to 1%. In reality, we have 5 garages on Skye and Raasay. The rents for them are considerably below the Highland-wide average for a garage rent from the council, even with a 7% increase applied. So at the moment, if you're a council tenant, you pay $6.57 a week for your garage rent. If you're a non-tenant, you pay £8.11. So under section 6 of the report, we've costed out a 3%, a 5% and a 7% increase, and even the maximum 7% that's been costed, we're talking about a weekly increase of 46 pence for a council tenant renting a garage from us, and 57 pence for someone who is not a council home tenant. So it's still a relatively small increase we're asking for, making those new weekly rents of £7.03 and £8.68, which, as I say, still stay well below the average garage rent in Highland of £10.46 a week. So anything that we get from the garage rents obviously then goes into repair costs for garages, etc. And it was just to ask if you would please consider and approve a 7% rent increase.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. I think you've articulated that quite well. We're below the average in Highland. It doesn't seem as substantial. So members, are we happy to agree that? Yeah. Okay, Jenny, all members are happy to approve that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, members, moving on to agenda item number 8, the Uig Harbour redevelopment update. We've got Gary Smith from the council with us today. We all know what an important project this is for Skye and for the Western Isles. And I think it's really important that we do get a summary from Gary about how things are going. I know some members visited Uig last week, and I think we were impressed by the works that were taking place. And I personally was quite amazed by the scale of the work that's been so far undertaken. So, Gary, we'll hand over to you for this verbal update. And I think you've got a presentation.
Yes, I do. Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, morning, members. I'll just share my screen, and hopefully we can. I can get a presentation underway. So hopefully you're seeing the first slide. So yeah, I'm not hearing any
yes,
negative
yeah,
reaction.
We're seeing
so
it.
yeah,
Yeah, we've got it, Gary.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm just here to give you an update on progress and programme on the project. And I'll just start, if you don't mind, with a bit of terminology and to orientate ourselves to the project. So the yellow area is the marshalling area. So we've reclaimed land from the seaward side to improve the landward side facilities at Uig. The green area is the approachway, so that's how vehicles get on and off the pier. The link span is the small orange area here, and that's the section that takes loading and unloading of the vessel. So the vessel addresses itself to the link span, and that moves up and down with the tide, or can be moved up and down to accommodate for the tide when vehicles are loading and unloading. And then you've got the purple area, which is the blue area, which is the berthing structure, and you've got the pink area, which is the proposed dredge area around the harbour. So that's just some of the terminology that we'll be talking about. So first of all, this is an overview of the marshalling, the new marshalling area. So the piling you see in the foreground there is the new fisherman's compound. So there's an area here which will be specifically for fisherman's compound and a store for Calmac. And all of the area that's been reclaimed is going to be additional parking area and marshalling area for the new ferry. And there's also going to be a new building in the central portion of that area that's currently being used for storage. But so you've got storage of piles on the right hand side here. You've got a concrete batching plant. We're batching all of our concrete on site for the various concrete pours to give the contractor control of that aspect. The next slide is just moving on. So we've got the approachway here on the left hand side. So currently it's a single track approachway. You can just see in that slide there's a row of double piles, and these are new piles that we've installed, and they will carry a new structure over the top of this, and that will effectively double the width of the approach structure. So you'll have a two-way road and area for fishing vessels, and that will be the mooring face for the fishing vessels and the small vessels that use Uig Harbour. Just moving on to the area around the link span. So in the centre of the slide, I hope you can see. Sorry, just here. There's a hole that's appeared in the centre of the old structure, and that this is part of the works that are being carried out by the contractor just now. So what we're doing is installing a new foundation structure that will carry the new link span for the structure. So this is the old link span here and the link span dolphin. So these are the support. That's the existing support structure for the existing link span. We're building a new support in behind the dolphins to support the new link span. And again, we've cut a hole in the existing structure to install the new base. And just the chairman's talking about scale. This is the scale of the works that are carrying out. So we've got a 600 deep thick reinforced concrete slab, which forms the existing deck. And what the contractor's doing is cutting this deck out to enable us to repile the new foundation for the new link span structure. And that work's ongoing, and I'll talk a little bit about the closure that's happening at the moment. So there's a lot going on in this picture, and I'll try and explain it as best I can. The equipment on the left hand side is that's the jack-up barges that are being used to construct a new berthing structure. So the line of piles that you see here is the new berthing structure, and you can just see there's fill material which come from the Kingsborough quarry, which is infill. So the new structure provides a solid berthing structure. The existing one is open piled, so this allowed the movement of the sea to come through the structure. And obviously that leads to issues in terms of tidal movement during loading and unloading. So the new solid structure will create a barrier for the sea. So it will create a much more sheltered environment for where the ferry fits when it berths alongside the structure. So on the right hand side of the existing structure, this is again equipment that's being used at the moment. So we've had the delivery of new piles. The green vessel there is the barge that will be used it's a hopper barge that will be used for removal of the dredging material. So when the contractor dredges the area, the dredged material will go into that barge, and it will be taken out to the site that we've got for disposal of that material at sea. So I think you can see there's a fair amount going on at the moment. So we're very busy, I would say, and it's what the closure that we're in the first closure period at the moment, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in the next slide. But what that closure allows us to do is lots of consecutive activities can be carried out when you've got no ferry operations undergoing, and you can see, if you've visited the site, you can see the scale of the operations that are having to be carried out to provide the new facilities at Uig. And that's essentially what the closures are about. So again, an overview. These structures, this is just to let you know that the structures that are in and that are working on the piling, they move around from time to time depending on the operation that they're working on. So these bits of plant are obviously very important in getting the cranes to the right place to enable them to do the work that they need to do to build the new structure. So this is just a little bit of timeline in terms of where we are. So we started the closure, so there are no ferry operations at Uig from the 16th of January, and we're in this period in here, and the closure's due to finish on the 13th of March. So the contractor's fully focused on that date to so that we can hit the summer season, and the ferry operations then run unaltered this summer. So all of the summer operations, ferries will run as normal, using the existing link span and a temporary bridge that the contractor's putting in between the existing link span and the existing structure. So that temporary bridge will be in place all through the summer, and as the ferry operations will run as normal. And then during the second closure, which starts on the 30th of October, they will replace the link span. So that's what our works are working towards. So we'll replace the link span 30th of October, and that closure will last for 6 weeks. And then we'll reopen, but the actual completion of the works is not until April 2024. So that's a whistle-stop tour as to where we are and how we're getting on, and all of the works are proceeding well on site. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Yeah,
and I can take any questions that you have.
Yeah, I mean, that was really, really informative. So thank you very much for that. I've got a couple of questions, maybe observations. Is the piling going well, Gary? Because I think that's such an important part of the project. It's interesting to hear about the new solid structure, with the infill. So just wondering, can you use the materials that you're dredging? Can that not be used as part of the infill? Might that save money? I don't know. I mean, you know better than I will. And in terms of when the ferries come back on, will you be able to still continue with some of the land-based works and things during that period before the second closure in October? But I think my overriding impression is that it's a massive project, and I think the progress that's been made to date, that's been really positive, despite the weather conditions we've had. And I think we're all looking forward to that finalisation of the project. I'll go to Callum, and maybe Callum's got a question, and then you can maybe answer them all together, Gary. Callum?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a couple of observations and a question too for Gary. Gary, the really good pictures which helped make a really clear presentation, which is really helpful. I hope people get a chance to look at that. I had a good site visit on Friday with Ian McLennan, and it's quite spectacular when you're down at the sea, seeing what's going on and the amount of plant and the scale of it. I think too, Gary, I just wanted maybe to really thank you and yourself and Andrew and Ian who've attended the CLGs, and it's not been an easy journey. I think through perseverance, we've got the community, and ourselves and the contractors really trying to almost singing from the same hymn sheet and understanding the various intricacies of the project. And I know, Gary, when you come, you drive home afterwards to Brora or Golspie, so your attendance is appreciated and it makes a difference. So my only question is, you didn't really mention, Gary, the terminal building, and where is that going in terms of dates for completion or for beginning completion? Has a contract? What stage is the contract in terms of getting tenders in and so on? So thanks, Gary.
Okay, is that all of the questions?
Yeah, that looks like all the questions at this stage.
All. Okay, I'll just in terms of the dredging material, the material that's dredged off the seabed really isn't suitable for reuse, and it's relatively common that those silts and fine materials that build up around our harbours are it's very silty material. So that's routinely disposed of at sea, and we have the licenses in place for that to happen. In terms of the, I think you were talking about works ongoing. Yeah, the works don't stop when the ferry comes back back into service on the 13th of March. The works will continue around that, and we're actually installing a couple of fender piles at the roundhead, so that ferry operations can continue whilst the contractor still continues to work on that berthing structure and complete those works, so that both operations can happen at once. And we will be working on the landward side works and the approachway all during the period when the ferry's working. So that the period during the summer will be fully utilised to push on the project. I think piling progress is going well. We have had several obstructions to piling. There are various bits on the seabed that it's difficult to survey before you start. You do your soils investigation, but there are always things that end up being on the seabed which you didn't really know about, and you need to move out of the way. The contractor's got a dive team there which goes down and checks out the area prior to any piling, and the obstructions are moved out of the way and dealt with, and the piling continues. In terms of the ground conditions, we have hit ground conditions in some areas. It's quite variable, so you'll get piles that will go to set in one area and maybe don't go to set in the adjacent area. So what we're doing is carrying out some testing in the area. We've carried out that before Christmas, and we'll continue to do that in January. And any works on the piling can be so that we can ensure that the bearing capacity of the piles are right for the structure. So that's what we're going through just now. All of the piling, as I say, is progressing well. Yep, I think we're making good progress. And the terminal building, the design, we did go out to tender last year. But we're re-tendering that process from an affordability point of view. The tenders came in a little bit higher than we would like, so we're looking at optimizing the design to reducing the footprint a little bit without without reducing the area for waiting and seating. So we're going through that process just now. So that those tender documents will be issued again, I think, in February. We'll be looking to get those tenders returned and get an award late spring, so that building, we're aiming to get the building completed by the time all of the physical works are finished with. So it's still that spring 2024 is when we're looking at the overall completion.
Okay, Gary, I think that's been really, really informative, and I'm pretty sure we'll be asking you back to a future area committee to give us an update. But I noticed Councillor Miller's coming in.
Oh, thanks very much, Chairman. Yeah, it was an excellent presentation, and it's good. It's good that you're getting on with the work without the ferry interrupting it, because I think that's probably quite important, and I'm sure that everybody concerned welcomed the two stoppages rather than, I think initially it was the one, wasn't it? So yeah, it seems to be working well. And Councillor Monroe was obviously asked a question that it was in my mind about the base, the new offices, the new toilets, which will be incorporating the existing public toilets, in a sense that they'll be moving over to the new building. So that's good. I just wanted to say, Chairman, and Councillor Monroe thanked Gary and his colleagues for the excellent work, but I think we should actually also note the Councillor Monroe's input to keeping the meetings relatively civil. I have to apologise as well as that I haven't been able to attend as many as I would have liked since May because of other commitments, but I think that we should acknowledge the work that Councillor Monroe has done, as well as to keep the meetings going and getting through the business. So I think that should be in the minute as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Monroe. I mean, I think it's important to have somebody on the ground, and particularly somebody who probably lives pretty locally, so I think that's been a good move to have yourself involved in chairing it. And so I'd like to personally thank yourself and the officers and the community engagement. We know at times it's been tricky, but I think at the end of the day, the community is really going to benefit and will appreciate this, this project once it's completed. And the timescales are actually a lot shorter than I would have thought, because there's a lot of work to be done, Gary. But I know that you'll keep us posted. And once again, can I thank you for coming along today, and we will see you soon.
Okay, right. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, members, we're moving on to our last agenda item, which is a very important one and a comprehensive one. So it relates to the Community Regeneration Fund, and we're assessing the applications that we've had to date, and we're going to be considering these applications, and we're either going to be approving them, we're going to be deferring them, rejecting them, and maybe in some cases we might amend what we're going to provide. But I think the Fiona and Marianne, who've been really hard working in terms of evaluating and liaising with us as members, are going to do a brief introduction. Then we'll go through each project individually. So I'm going to hand over to Marianne.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Thank you for your time today to discuss the Community Regeneration Funding application submitted for consideration in your area. Ahead of today's meeting, members will have received the application forms and a RAG summary spreadsheet highlighting the outcomes of the technical assessments undertaken by the CRF team. It's important to note that the RAG assessment is undertaken on information that has been provided to us by the applicant during the application process. Where a project has been awarded red or amber against any criteria, this does not reflect an eligibility issue, but does flag up that there are outstanding concerns or that only brief information was provided within the application. If members wish to approve projects that have red or amber ratings, then we would usually just seek to address these concerns by applying technical conditions to any funding award made. I need to update members with regards to some changes to the available funding allocation since the committee papers were issued. As members are aware, within the umbrella of Community Regeneration Funding, we administer the Highland Coastal Communities Fund and the Place-Based Investment Programme. Both these funds are what we call area funds, and the award of these funds sit with local elected members. But CRF also includes the Community-Led Local Development Funds, CLLD, on behalf of the Highland Strategic LAG. So we have now met with the LAG, who have agreed final grant awards for projects from the current year's allocation. I'm happy to say that following the recent award of additional CLLD funding from the Scottish Government, the LAG have been able to increase the level of CLLD contribution to some of the projects, subsequently reducing the ask from area funds. So more particularly, in Skye and Raasay, this is the case for project reference CRF 1092 from the Staffin Community Trust for the Crofters Memorial Project. So this project has now been awarded £10,000 from CLLD and therefore will not need to be considered today by members for a request from area funds. And it's also the case for project reference CRF 1070 from Broadford and Strath Community Company. The approved CLLD grant for this project has increased to £30,750 and therefore reduced the ask from area funds to £10,250. In addition to these changes, a recent review of the projects approved from the Highland Coastal Communities Fund Round 1 identified an underspend amount of £5,189, which will be rolled over to this year's Coastal Communities allocation. And we also identified an error in the available allocation for round 2 of HCCF being discussed today, and noted as £378,973 in the committee papers. However, the correct amount is actually £367,000, £367,445,074. So when we add the underspend from round 1, the total available allocation for this round of HCCF is actually £372,635.47. So in summary, and taking in consideration the changes I just brought to your attention, in Skye and Raasay, members are asked today to consider 16 applications with a total grant request of £495,255.88, with available area funds of £440,795.47, meaning the funds are oversubscribed. Members will also be aware that there's an allocation of £10,147 from the Highlands Emergency Fund to support capital projects that are aimed at alleviating the impacts of the cost of living crisis. They're within the current round of projects. Only project CRF 1169 from the Glendale Community Hall Association is deemed to fit the criteria. So members are asked to decide whether to approve, defer or reject applications under consideration, and in the case of approvals, to agree the grant award amount and any conditions of funding they wish to attach over and above the technical conditions we will attach arising from the technical assessments, such as match funding status, planning permission and other statutory consents. If members are minded to approve CRF 1169 from the Glendale Hall Association, we would also ask that members approve that this is funded via the Highlands Emergency Fund. So, Chair, unless there are any queries at this point, I can introduce each application and remain available to answer any questions that may arise during discussions.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Okay, members, can we first of all, can we agree to the request from Glendale as articulated there by Marianne? Yep. Yeah, okay, members agree that. Okay, Marianne, thank you for that. And just to make clear, we've had a lot of in-depth discussion as members. We've looked very robustly at all the applications, and we thank you and Fiona as well for your input around that. So what we'll do is we'll go through each application, but with the knowledge that we have spent an awful lot of time to date going through them. So I think that's really important to state. So we'll go over to you then, Marianne.
Okay, thank you. So the first project is CRF 1066 from Radio Skye, with a cultural journalist post-extension project costs of just over £28,000. Match funding is outstanding but has been applied for, and the grant request from area funds today is £14,000.81. It is a well-presented application with strong community support evidenced by the applicant. Legacy in the technical assessment is graded amber due to the fact that the applicant mentioned the long-term sustainability of the post is dependent on the successful installation and running of 2 accommodation pods in Radio Skye car park, and this project hasn't yet started. Otherwise, we've no other concerns.
Okay, thank you for that. Members did discuss this. We had one minor concern. I think it relates to the fact that we have got a very well-respected local paper here already, and I think there was just a minor concern that maybe there was duplication. But I think the job description for this post at Radio Skye should hopefully give reassurance that there's not going to be a crossover or conflict with the existing journalistic portfolio on the island. So members, I think we were minded to approve.
Approved, yes.
Approved. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Marianne, we can move on to the next one.
CRF 1070 from Broadford and Strath Community Company for the Community Coordinator and Development posts. Project costs of £48,800. Match funding is confirmed, and the area fund grant request is £10,250, an intervention rate of 21%. The technical assessment did not highlight cause for concerns. Some costs listed are ineligible but could be covered by match funding. And some of the project costs include specialist consultant support fees, which would just need to be agreed before they are incurred to ensure eligibility, but that could be added as a technical condition if members are minded to approve the application.
Okay, members, discussion. We were minded to approve, is that correct? Okay, Marianne, thank you.
CRF 1086 from Einet Trotternish, the Voices of the Land project. Project costs of £82,000 and 11 pence. No, £82,011. No match funding for this phase of the project, so it's an intervention rate of 100%. The technical assessments you'll have seen highlighted concerns around value for money and the level of grant requested in relation to community benefit. Specific staff costs and expenses also raise cause for concerns, as the costs seem potentially quite high in proportion to the level of activity being delivered.
Yeah, and I think that was certainly what members thought as well. I think we thought the costs were high. We also discussed the fact that there didn't seem to be any match funding. It seemed to be 100% application. We also noted that there were several project people involved as opposed to maybe one defined person. But at the same time, we also recognise the value of such a project. And in discussion, members were minded not to provide the full funding package given the money available to us, but we thought perhaps 30,000 would be appropriate. Is that correct, members?
I think so, Chairman. Yeah, I think there are obviously some concerns, and I think looking at the other plans for up there, if the big centre that they are hoping to attract funding for is still very much a dream, I think if it would give it, this project would probably would have been a lot more acceptable if they'd had that base in place perhaps beforehand. And I think there are many organisations throughout Skye and Laois and the Highlands who are very much promoting Gaelic language and Gaelic culture. So I think that perhaps I would maybe contest some of the statement contained in page 64, that perhaps that our support for the Gaelic language and culture are accommodated by quite a few other organisations as well. So I think that your assessment there and the discussions that we've had as members previously, I think that 30,000 would at least be giving them some encouragement to that the project. It seems a very good project, a very worthwhile project, but I think 30,000 at the moment should be acceptable, I would have thought.
Okay, Councillor Monroe.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think obviously I made a statement of transparency. I've been involved in one aspect of the project a few months ago, and it directly affects the area I live in. I think the project could be actually lead the way in terms of Scottish cultural recording of heritage and so on. I think it's got a lot going for it, and I know too that in it Trotternish is really another really strong stream in terms of establishing a centre, a cultural centre, and a building which will give people in Trotternish a real a base, an economic boost. So I think that's part of their aim too. There's no reason they can't come back in the future with further applications. I think it was quite a big ask at this point. No match funding, as you say. So I think that's probably the best compromise at this point, and I think they can hopefully progress the project with this award. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So, members, are we agreeing to approve £30,000? Agreed. Okay, thank you. Marianne?
Thank you. CRF 1088, Broadford and Strath Community Company, the Skye Event Space project. Project costs of just over £155,000. Some elements of match funding are outstanding, but the applicant expects a quick turnaround. The grant request today is £50,000, so an intervention rate of 32%. The technical assessment reflects a good, well-planned project with just outstanding requirements regarding planning permission and completion of land purchase. So again, if members were minded to approve this project, we would add these as conditions.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. I think that's absolutely what we agreed. The conditions around about planning, match funding, and land acquisition, and providing these conditions are met, we're happy to approve. Agreed, members? Yep.
Thank you. CRF 1091 from Radio Skye, the accommodation pods, project costs of £30,433. Some match funding again is outstanding, but the grant request today is £15,000, an intervention rate of 49%. The technical assessment highlighted some outstanding requirements to be met before the project can start, such as permission from the council for the pods to be sited on the land leased to Radio Skye and planning permission. Otherwise, the project graded well, especially in value for money, as the applicant aims to raise a level of income which will allow the organisation to be financially sustainable in the future.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that we agree that the conditions are around about council permission, planning, match funding, and the bit that really interested me was the support that these pods would offer a key workers in the different services, and there was a commitment to provide, I think it was at 3 months or something per year, where key workers coming to Skye for work would be able to access accommodation there. And we know how difficult it is to get that accommodation, so that's a key factor for me personally. But we were minded to approve, members, is that correct? Providing the conditions are met.
Great, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. CRF 1094 from Skye Connect on behalf of Skye Iconic Sites Partnership, the Quirang Loop Path Reinforcement Project. So project costs of £32,500. Match funding is confirmed, and the grant request today is £90,000, so an intervention rate of 60%. It's a strong application, evidencing a project ready to start once the funding is confirmed. Worth noting that the applicant addressed members' comments at expression of interest stage and decided to phase the project to deal with the most pressing needs on the path with this CRF application.
Okay, I think members were aware from a meeting with the access officer just how crucial it is to get this work done. And we do appreciate that this is just one part of a much bigger project, but I think we all agree that it really needs to take place. And I think, Councillor Miller, you in particular, because you're up there quite a lot, were very keen that this was supported.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic project, and sure Councillor Monroe knows the area pretty well also. But the number of especially visitors that go up there are locals as well, but the number of visitors go up there and take part in along that particular route is huge. So and this is a necessary project, and as you said yourself, we've had discussions about various projects with our access officer, and this is one that in a hugely important, hugely visited part of Skye. It must be probably our third most popular visiting point, maybe third or fourth. Anyway, I think this is a fantastic project, and yeah, let's support it as much as we can and support the application.
Thank you, Councillor Monroe.
Thanks, Chair. Just to add to Councillor Miller's comments here, I think what we've seen in some of the photographs when we discussed this was the erosion, really bad erosion in the area, and the scarring on the landscape. And I think it's really unsightly, and it needs, this is probably the same for many parts of our island as a tourist destination. We want to make present our area as best as we can and as well as we can. So I think it's important that we support this.
Okay, members, we agree to approve. Thank you. Okay, moving on, Marianne.
Thank you. CRF 1129, Skye Dance, Building Connection and Community Through Dance Project. Project costs of £34,919 with a grant request amount of £25,939 and an intervention rate of 74%. Again, a strong application with strong community support for the project. You'll have seen on the technical assessment legacy and exit strategy graded as amber, solely due to the fact that the applicant stated the organisation is not financially self-sustainable and they would be likely to require financial support from public or charitable funding in the future. Otherwise, a strong application.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miller.
Yes, Chairman, happy to support this. I think perhaps a lot of people don't appreciate the benefits, certainly to young people, of this project being supported. I mean, the benefit young people get, and it says it in the report, I think, from the confidence it gives young people, the mental health benefits. I think that it has been a fantastic project throughout the years, and I think that well, as you said, we've discussed it. Members who are part of the discussion fully supported it, but I think we just really need to acknowledge the benefits, as I say, that this does for young people, and maybe not so young people as well, who take part in any form of dancing. So welcome this support for this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, they've got a proven track record, and it might be that should Strictly Come Dancing come back to Skye, that Councillor Miller now looks as if he would want to participate. So I'd be encouraging that.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, maybe a slow waltz might be my speed nowadays, rather than a Boston two-step or a quick step. But yeah, you never know.
Okay, Marianne, yeah, we're happy to approve.
Thank you. CRF 1141, Skye Connect, and for the Skye Cycle Network Development Stage 2 project. Project costs of £32,500, a grant request amount of £16,500, which means an intervention rate of 51%. Overall, again, a well-planned project. Project robustness is graded amber, as there is an element of outstanding match funding. Strong support from the community has been evidenced in the application and the supporting documents.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think we're all aware of the Skye Cycle Netway and the Skye Cycle in the South End as well, and we're really supportive of that. But I think, Councillor Miller, there was a point that you wanted to make.
Yes, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously happy to support it. Get on your bike is a very positive phrase nowadays, rather than what it was when I was a young fellow. But yeah, I think it would be good though, if we did support this, that we would get maybe updates on visible progress on the establishment of the actual routes, and I just maybe a wee bit of concern under 5.1. I think where a lot of the costs are obviously office-based costs. And I would have to say a wee bit concerned that I would consider, maybe somebody could correct me here, but the rate is rather lucrative. I would have suggested for the person being the self-employed rate is set that I think is rather a lucrative is maybe the only way to describe it. I don't want to really upset too many people, but it seems rather a lot. And I just wondered, Marianne, if there's any sort of benchmarking that could be given to this as part of the project. But in principle, I think I certainly am happy to support it. But I just think at £166 per day is the figure quoted. Self-employed day rate of £166 per day to me seems rather excessive. But I think, do we have any benchmarks, or could we get that?
Okay, Marianne.
It's certainly something we can query with the applicant, and should members be minded to approve the application, we would include your benchmarking comments as well as feedback, and we would include the condition that we would require a benchmarking exercise to take place.
Okay. Okay,
I think it would be in everybody's interests, Chairman. Yeah, I think, Chairman, it would be in everybody's interest to get updated reports on it, because it has a huge impact. It will have a huge impact on locals as well as tourists on the cycle paths.
Okay, based on these comments, are we happy to approve? Okay, thank you. Moving on, Marianne.
CRF 1125 from Uig Community Hall Association for environmental and accessibility improvements. Project costs of £10,140. Match funding is in place and the grant request to date is £9,000. So an intervention rate of 89%. The application scored well in the technical assessment, and again the applicant has addressed members' feedback following expression of interest, and the application is focusing on the costs of only commissioning professional design services up to building warrant submission and subsequent tendering of works for upgrading the toilet facility and reducing energy costs.
Yep, I think we're all very supportive of this project. I think it's the only one that's been ragged all green, my favourite colour. So I'm very happy to approve, and I'm sure other members are also nodding, even Councillor Miller. So we'll approve that one, Marianne. Thank you.
Thank you. CRF 1151 from Hebridean Diving Services. A project title, Coastal Defence at the south of Steam Jetty. Project costs of £60,058. £20,000 of match funding is outstanding from Crown Estate. So if unsuccessful, the applicant requests that CRF underwrites that amount and fully fund the project. So the grant request, therefore, to be considered today is £35,058. You'll have noted in the technical assessment this project graded as red for project robustness. And this is due to the applicant being a private business. Since this project was originally part of a larger community-led project to mitigate the effects of coastal erosion in the area, and following discussions with the applicant, a decision has been made to form a constituted group led by the community in the Stein Conservation Area. And so far, positive feedback and support from the residents has been received. So this would mean, for the purpose of this application, that if members were minded to approve the request, a condition would be added to the offer of grant, that the award will be made once the group is constituted, and the coastal erosion project will then be led by the community group as opposed to by being led by Hebridean Diving Services, therefore ensuring we're supporting a community-led project. And also worth noting that this project received an award from HCCF Round 1. So this award would also be tied up with the same condition, kind of by extension, I suppose. All other consents are in place for this project.
Okay, thanks, Marianne. I think this is the one we had most discussion about. And certainly given that the match funding effectively is the funding that we awarded in the first round of CCF. But I think you've articulated the conditions that we would expect to be met if we were to support this. And that's the constitution of a community group who would lead on it, the additional funding or the match funding, hopefully from the Crown Estates, which would offset some of the funding that we are putting in. So members, I think, providing these conditions were met, we were minded to approve.
Approved, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. CRF 1196, the State Community Trust. Project cost of £22,880. Match funding is in place, and the grant request to be considered today is £11,220. So an intervention rate of 49%. The technical assessment did not raise any cause for concerns, and the project is ready to start once funding is secured.
Yeah, we're minded to approve that. Thank you.
CRF 1213 from Uig Community Trust, Uig Regeneration Projects. Project costs of £45,000. Match funding from HIE is outstanding. Grant request today is £22,500, so an intervention rate of 50%. So this CRF application was slightly lacking information, so it did not grade very well on the technical assessment, but it's worth noting that therefore the assessment may not reflect the value of the project. The job description describes a 3-year post with a salary of £35,000. Costs also include £5,000 of expenses, which we would need to discuss with the applicant to ensure they are eligible before they are incurred. Otherwise, no other concerns.
Okay, so in terms of that project, we've been asked to contribute towards the first year. Is there any indication that there's funding in place to make the post sustainable for the 3 years?
No, not in the application form, but however, as I said, the application was lacking in information, so it's certainly something we could request from the applicant. It would be worth, I suppose, saying that the post will in itself, I suppose, generate income, and the fact that that person might apply for funding for projects. So there could be a way of sustaining at least partially the post for the next 3 years.
Okay, Councillor Monroe.
Thank you, Chair. I think maybe we talked about this earlier on in the process when we looked at this. We wondered if 35,000 was the right salary for a development officer post, and I think maybe HIE have got a lot more experience than ourselves in doing this. So, Marianne, I don't know if we can confirm what a salary would be for the typical development officer post. It seems quite a lot. I have a feeling HIE might have a different view on the actual rate. I think this is, a great post and could do an awful lot of good in that community, and we'll get good guidance there. But I think just that's one thing I want to award this, but I think we should just make sure that HIE and ourselves are on the same page in terms of the salary per annum for that post.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Milan.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Councillor Monroe there. Okay, it does seem a lot of money for this particular part of the world. I mean, I don't know what the average salary is for Skye and Raasay nowadays, but I would have thought that must be at the top level, which to me is maybe again consistent with what I said before about the Skye Connect project, about the amount of money going into a salary. I would have some same concerns as Councillor Monroe. However, if we could get some reassurance, whatever, following on from that, I would also, again, trying to be consistent today, it would be, I personally would appreciate some updates to the area, to the ward, business meetings perhaps, if this does go ahead, on the outputs coming from this particular post. I certainly, having experience over many years, what I don't want to see is a filing cabinet full of papers and no output except filling the filing cabinet. So it would be reassuring, I think, given the fact that they may come back in again for funding in the future, that we see some outputs from it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So, Marianne, so what we're hearing here is that there's some concern over the salary. So the condition seems to be, can we get some sort of benchmarking and input from HIE? So it might be that the ask might be amended, but I mean, we're minded to approve, but on the basis that perhaps we have a real look at the salary being paid, which might result in a reduction in what we give.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
CRF 1215 from Portree and Braes Communities Trust, the Home Farm Hub project. So project costs of £96,649.66. Match funding is outstanding. The applicant mentioned they were due to apply for match funding in January. So the grant request today is £64,138.66, which means an intervention rate of 66%. The technical assessment highlighted an amber for value for money. For this projects, there are concerns over the level of community benefits which could be achieved by the end of the project date due to the fact that there are outstanding requirements to be met before the community events can start, such as the capital works, match funding needing to be secured and the recruitment process to take place. Otherwise, we didn't have any other serious cause for concerns, and it's well supported by the community.
Okay, I think most of us are aware of how long they've been working on this particular project and of its value to the community, but I think the conditions that you mentioned there round about match funding, you know, are key in this. But Councillor Miller would probably know more about this living in Portree than I might do. So comments, Drew?
I don't know much more. I know it took a long time to get the allotment set up and everything, and it looks to me like a good space from a distance. I haven't been that close to it, though. Walked past it many times. But just maybe asking again, Marianne, just going back to trying to be consistent. I noticed that the project officer salary, including the NI and pension contributions, come to just over 20,000. So I also can accept perhaps the other costs as being a par for the course, shall we say. Though £150 for an office chair seems quite a lot. But I hope that maybe that, or could I ask, do you scrutinise, or have you scrutinised these costs, and do they seem acceptable to you? Given, I would imagine, I don't know where they're going to be based. Are they going to be based in the trust office, the project officer? Are they going to be based on site down at the hub? But other than that, I mean, it sounds to me like a reasonably good project. I just, again, refer back to the salary positions, and that seems to me for Skye and Raasay probably a fair salary, but perhaps slightly below the average, I would suggest.
Okay, so that's interesting. So we're seeing some salaries above and some maybe not. You know, so I suppose the point that you make there about that consistency. So I suppose it's that benchmarking exercise that was maybe mentioned for a number of projects.
Yeah.
So Marianne, can you remind me again what conditions we're recommending for this one?
So for this one, we would recommend putting in obviously a match funding condition. So we want to see a full funding package in place. We would include the benchmarking for the salary for the project officer. And with regards to Councillor Miller's query over the eligibility of some of the costs, we would, I think, have that discussion with the applicant. Generally, we don't costs such as consumables, so printing, stationery, things like this would be ineligible for us, but could be covered by match funding. So I think it would be a discussion to be had with the applicant before we make the offer of grant, so that we know what to include in the conditions.
Yeah, I think on that basis, and again, it might be that, you know, things might change. I think we're minded to approve, members.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. CRF 1247, Portree and Breeze Community Stress, for a finance and admin officer post. Project cost of £18,412, with no match funding in place, so an intervention rate of 100%. There were no cause for concerns raised in the technical assessment. It is worth mentioning that the organisation is working on a strategy to help them achieve financial sustainability over the next 5 years, and reduce the level of grant funding required to support the organisation's activities.
Okay, members felt that they would probably need to maybe get an idea of what the outcomes were, and more importantly, see what this plan looks like. this plan to create financial stability. And I think that would be a condition that we would want to impose. Okay, based on that, members, happy to approve? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. And CRF 1246 from Portree and Breeze Community Trust, Matheson Place Play Park. Project cost of £110,754. Match funding is confirmed, and the grant request today is £21,000, so an intervention rate of 19%. The technical assessment reflected a good quality project. Project robustness was graded amber due to an outstanding requirement relating to the lease agreement with the Highland Council. However, we know that discussions are ongoing between the Highland Council and the applicant, and essentially at this point there are no issues with the lease agreement in principle.
Okay, so I think obviously these are very obvious conditions. I think given the fundraising that's going on, we're minded to approve. But Councillor Miller has got a point to make.
No, yeah, I'm absolutely happy to support what you've just said there. I think that as a member of the Portree Community Council, I was invited along to a meeting there when some of the community were trying to get this up and running, and it is very much a community-led project in that particular area of Portree, and which was totally neglected, or the area of ground that they're looking at had been left to fall into neglect. So if they can get the transfer from the council, it'll be a great project and much needed for that part of Portree. So fully supported, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So members were reminded to approve. Approve. Okay, Marianne, is that all the project?
That's all the project, Chair. Thank you. I can confirm that members have today approved 16 applications. The CRF 1086, the grant award amount has been reduced to £30,000. So in total, if my calculations are right, you have approved £443,244.88 of funding, which leaves a balance of available funds of £7,697.59, which would be rolled over to the next allocation.
Okay, and it may be that there may be additional funds coming back when match funding is confirmed from certain projects.
Yes.
Okay. Well, once again, Marianne and Fiona, can I thank you for all your hard work in engaging with the applicants, for briefing members, and for the ongoing liaison that we've had, because we spent quite a few hours going over all of these worthy applications, and I'm sure the communities will be pleased with the decisions that we've made today. So can I thank you both once again, and we hopefully will see you again soon when we've got more money to spend.
Thank you very much for your time today, members.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, members, that brings us, I think, to the last agenda item. Where are we? Which is, or was that our last agenda item? I've lost my paper here. Alistair, remind me.
I believe that is the agenda completed, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, members, can I thank you for your time today? I think it was a very sobering at times, but also very a positive area committee, and hopefully people understand the challenges we've got with our roads and what we're trying to do. And I'm sure all the communities across Skye who got funded today will also be appreciative. So thank you for your input, and we'll see you all soon.